The world as we know it has shifted and changed over the last few months, few years, particularly when we talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion. And so I want to have a conversation about kind of the state of where we are, and who better to have this conversation with than Stacey Gordon. Stacey, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you. So excited to be here.
Wonderful. So Stacey, for those who may not know who you are, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I always think like, where do I start? Going backwards is always a good idea. So I am leadership expert. I do a lot of work in diversity, equity, and inclusion, and around how we make inclusive leaders and how we make work fair and how we make it work for all. And so that has been my motto of my business for the last decade. Done a lot of work around unconscious bias, what that looks like in the recruitment process. And so that is really where I like to focus, is around talent, and how we are hiring, how we are engaging, how we are advancing, how we are promoting, all the things that have to do with work.
So you have seen a lot of ebbs and flows in this space, right? I've been in this space probably longer than I've intentionally wanted to be in this space. But the last, I would say, 5 years have been very interesting. Talk to us a bit about what you've seen, especially in the last, let's say, 3 years, because I think there was something happening even prior to this big anti-DEI push that many of us started to see the blood in the water,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. And it's funny that you say interesting, because there's an old ancient curse, right? And it's like, may you live in interesting times. And that's what I think about all the time, because people will say, oh, that's interesting. Because that's usually code for messed up, don't like it, right? Like,
Special.
yes. And we have been living in interesting times. We really have for the last, I mean, when I say we, it depends on who you're talking about, right? When I
Mhm.
say we, initially I was thinking we being Americans, people living in the United States of America, right? But that we could mean Black people. It could mean Black women. It could mean people of color in general. It could mean, LGBTQ folks, right? People with disabilities. Like the we in there, depending upon who we're talking about, it has been less or more interesting for some than others.
Mhm.
And so I think people forget that before COVID, before George Floyd was murdered, pre 2020, we were already experiencing DEI fatigue, right?
Yeah,
Had
absolutely.
people saying, oh, aren't we over this diversity conversation? We just had a Black president, and the conversation around diversity was that we're tired of it. We don't need to keep having
Mhm.
that conversation.
We're in a
And then,
post-racial
yes.
society.
Oh,
Mhm.
please let me know what this post-racial society is, because I would like to live there. It must be nice. Um, but then George Floyd got murdered, and people were like, "Oh, well, maybe there are some things that we need to think about." A lot of people woke up and said, "What? There's police violence? Say it ain't so."
Clutching my pearls, clutching my pearls. Yes.
Right? So that happened. And then everybody, because it couldn't be ignored because of the pandemic, everyone was at
Right.
home, glued to their televisions. And so it wasn't something that you could just sort of sweep under the rug like we have normally been doing. And so then corporations, along with everybody else, said, oh, we do need to, do something. Right. And so
Mhm.
everyone had a black square. And I really wish, I thought about it at the time, and I thought about going around and screenshotting all the companies that had a black square, because I was like, I feel like this is going to be necessary later. Right?
Yes.
And it has been. It has definitely been necessary. But to what end, right? Like, so the ebbs and flows we've seen. I mean, Target is a perfect example of that ebb and flow, because they were we thought the leaders of D&I for corporate America was like, be more like Target. Now we're like, be more like Costco. So, it's like, who are we supposed to be like today?
Mhm.
And I think that's the thing I have been railing against from day one is stop trying to be like your competitors and actually work off of values aligned thinking, right?
Yeah.
Actually work off of what works for your business and your company and your people, and stop looking at what your competitors are doing, because what your competitors are doing today is really going to be terrible tomorrow. And if you're going around following other people, then you really can't call yourself leaders of anything.
Yeah. Well, and I think the other part of that too is it's disingenuous. If you are following what someone else is doing, that works for them. That may not necessarily work for you as an organization. And so it goes back to those black boxes being performative, right? And so we started to see a lot of that performative check the box. Oh, yep, we're doing this, we have this. But it never permeated the organization. It never became a part of the organization's DNA. And what I'm starting to see now is it's interesting. Yes, there was this big anti DEI push and a lot of fear. And again, Target, right, was the canary in the coal mine of what happens when you pull back as dramatically as they did. Um, what could happen, right? This past week, I've started seeing articles, one in particular, and I cannot remember, I think it was in Fortune magazine, around how the organizations that did not buck when all of this started to happen are the ones that will be sustainable because it was rooted in their values. It was rooted in who they were as an organization versus this check the box, nice to have, or flow in the wind kind of, oh, this is what they're doing. Oh, this is what they're doing. Those that kind of stayed the line, this is who we are, this is what we believe in. They may have changed some words just to be compliant, but they're still moving forward. Um, and so it was interesting to see that. And then yesterday, I had someone send me a job description. She's like, hey, send this out to your network. And it was diversity, equity, and inclusion specialist. And I'm starting to see more diversity, equity, and inclusion roles slowly coming back, right? So, in this space of anti DEI, we are still seeing some folks moving forward, right? So, how do you think, or what do you think will happen kind of as we continue down this path, right? Do you think this is now a new direction, or will it be another ebb and flow?
I mean, I think it's going to be another ebb and flow
Mm,
unless we do something. And I'm going to tell you what that thing is in a minute.
okay.
But I think the other thing is you mentioned, being inauthentic. And I want to touch on that because, June comes around every year,
Mhm.
and June is Pride Month. And for the first couple of years when it was really big, I kept asking myself, why does this bother me so much, right? Like, shouldn't you be excited that people are paying attention, to the issues that are plaguing LGBTQ folks? And you should be paying attention to this. And I was like, there's just something, right? And it's the inauthenticity of it. It's it's not the quite the black square, but it's the rainbow logo. And when you
Mhm.
think about the amount of money that companies spend on creating rainbow logos, rainbow merchandise, rainbow this, that, and the other, but yet individuals, professionals within their organizations don't feel safe,
Mhm.
right? Can't come into work and talk about their partner who,
Mhm.
what they did on the weekend, right? So that to me is what inauthenticity looks like. On its face, you're waving that wonderful flag, but in the workplace, people are hiding. And so, yes, I do think it is important because awareness does matter, because signaling is important to be able to say, yes, we are a safe place here. But then you actually have to be a safe place.
Yeah.
And most people are waving the flag, but they're not doing the action underneath it. And so
Mhm.
that's why I say there will be ebb and flow because companies cannot refuse to do what is necessary to actually put the safeguards in place to make it so that people with disabilities can apply to a job in their workplace and actually have the accommodations that they need to be able to work, right?
Yeah.
So that women can come into work and not be sexually harassed or bullied, so that people of color can come into work and not have to wonder, are they being paid less than their white counterparts, or were they only promoted because of the color of their skin, right? Meanwhile, being talked about behind their back as a diversity hire. These are things that we have to be looking for in the workplace and we need to be preventing. And so what has to happen, in my opinion, and not just in my opinion, I've been talking to a number of professionals in the leadership, HR, DEI space over the last 2 years. It's actually longer than that, but at least the people I've been talking to right now, we've started this again. And, we're saying that there's 3 things that need to happen. We need to have communication, we need to have education, and we need to have unification. So those 3 things are necessary in order for the ebb and flow to stop. So what do I mean by that? Well, the reason that over the last couple of years it has been so easy to dismantle DEI and remove initiatives and programs is because they were in there as a bolt-on in the first place.
Yep.
They were not embedded
Nice to have.
into the organization and the way that it works. And so when you can just slap it on and make it look pretty, it's really easy to peel it off later and throw it away, right? Which is what's happening right now. So in order for that to not happen, the reason it happens is because most people, the communication, first of all, if we think about the administration of the United States of America, what did they do? They immediately started communicating and saying things about DEI. It started with the stories, like planes are falling out of the sky because of DEI. Like this, that, and the other is happening because of DEI. No facts, no truth, no proof, no nothing. They're just saying these things, right? They just had someone to communicate. So first of all, DEI had bad PR. They did not have communication on its side to be able to speak up and say, no, this is what DEI is. To that point, people can't explain what DEI is because they're not educated. They don't understand what DEI is. You are sitting in your job right now, listening to this, probably because of DEI. Yet you are the first person to get up and go, oh no, we don't need that. Yeah, we do. Yeah, we absolutely do. And if you look at how the EEOC is dismantling reporting right now, that's a whole other thing, right? I'm not even going to go there right at this moment.
But it's true. It's very true. Like it's very it's highlighting how it's systemic.
Right.
Right. And it's not just storytelling, or it's just not my opinion. Like this is how it becomes a part of a system.
Right. But that's the communication, is how you communicate it, right? What you communicate. The education, if people were educated about what DEI is and what it isn't, then when the communication started about it, people would be able to say, oh, that doesn't make any sense. Oh, no, you can't actually say that because this is what it is. But because there's no education, the communication worked. And then the third part is unification. You got people calling DEI different things. We can't even come up with the same acronym. We've got DEIA, DEIJ, DEIB, BEIJ, IDEA, right? Like
Jedi.
Don't get me started on Jedis either.
I mean, it's all the things. And I'm just like, that's part of the confusion. Yeah.
Right. And so the problem is when you don't have a unified way of speaking about something, when you cannot very systematically say, this is the foundation of what it is that we are trying to do. These are the metrics that we use to measure it. This is where it fits into the organization. This is how the productivity ties to it, right? And if we can't have a standard way of doing that, that is unified across the board, we're going to continue to have these problems. And that's why we're going to continue to ebb and flow, because Deloitte's got their own metric system, right? PwC has their own metric system. Internally, people are creating their own metrics. And that's all well and good to measure. But not only is it a problem because we're not measuring the same things in the same way, but now the one place where you did need to measure things in the same way, which is the EEOC, we're now taking that out and saying we're not even going to count the people anymore. So now you don't even have a baseline for measurement. So completely dismantling even the structure of what was supposed to be foundational for DEIA practices.
Yeah. And it's fascinating to me how everything that was created to protect marginalized communities and peoples is being flipped on its head, right? And so for the EEOC to now be the advocate for cisgendered white men to say that they've been discriminated against is fascinating to me, right? Because then I'm like, okay, well, then you have to prove that this has been happening over a period of time. And that's where a lot of these cases are going to start falling apart. Some of them will actually go through, but it's the weaponization of laws and policies to dismantle why it was created to begin with.
I mean, let's call a spade a spade. It is corruption in the form in furtherance of racism.
Yeah,
That's
there's
what
that.
it is, right? Because
Yeah.
I mean, let's be real. We are trying to use legal means and we're trying to use professional words to describe actions that are neither legal nor
Right.
professional.
Yeah.
And so
And it's
you really can't, and this is why we're struggling, because we're trying to use a protected system against something that is not trying to work within the system. They have no, and when I say they, I mean the current administration and all of its cronies. And I use the word cronies particularly because that usually means part of a criminal enterprise, which is what is happening right now, right?
mhm,
Literally have people who are working illegally and then have the nerve to turn around and call DEI illegal while using the exact language necessary to then say, right, that the people are being discriminated against. But it's like you're using the exact language you just said is illegal. Is it legal or is it not? Which is it? You
mhm.
can't have your cake and eat it too. But apparently, we're allowing them to do that.
And it's the redefining of terms as well too, right? Because merit used to mean something.
No, it
And
didn't.
now it's like,
Merit never meant anything. Merit was
oh,
always code, right? Because if you look at what a meritocracy is supposed to be, people always say the United States of America is a meritocracy. No, it's not.
no,
No,
it's
it's
never
not.
been.
It is built on cronyism, right?
Oh
It is
yeah.
built on
Nepotism.
nepotism. It is not built on meritocracy.
Right.
Because meritocracy actually means that everybody has started from the exact same place and has been given the exact same tools and the exact same resources to do the exact same job, right?
Mhm.
And then you look at how they move forward. But we've never had a level playing field. We've never been given the same tools and resources. So it is impossible to have had a meritocracy. So anytime people start talking to me about merit, I'm like, bullshit.
Well, it's no, and what I meant by that too was like by definition, what merit is exactly what you're saying, right? Like we know what merit should be. What we've been seeing is not merit, right? When you put in, again, and I did a whole article on LinkedIn around cronyism and nepotism, like the isms we don't talk about, because hello, like that's what we've been seeing. That's the old boys network, the old boys
Mhm.
club, right? No one questions that or had questioned that other than those that were left out of the old boys club, right? Once you're in it, you're not going to question it because you're protected. So when I talk about merit, it's the true, clear definition of merit. But I absolutely agree. What we've been seeing is not a meritocracy. It's not merit. It's been who's my friend, who's my family, who's loyal to me, who's not going to question anything that I do so that
Who's
when it
paid
is
me?
corrupt, right.
Right. Let's not forget the exchange of monies.
So it's, when we're seeing this and it's mind blowing to me because for many people, all of this is brand new. And I'm like, I remember 20, 25 years ago in my career having to deal with this, right? When someone was brought in because she was a friend of the CEO. I had to have 2 degrees to have this job, and she just had her associate's degree and
And
no
you had to train
experience.
her, I bet.
Hmm?
And you had to train her.
there's a whole other conversation, but somehow or the other, I figured out she was making $40,000 more than me.
Of course she was.
Right. And so I pushed back. And all of a sudden now I'm the problem because I called it out. Right. And so now I start to, when you have the gall to be able to call these things out and you start to see how the system will shift and change to protect itself, it gives you a very good insight into why we are the way we are. Tune in next week for part 2 of this conversation with Stacey Gordon.